No, I got into the civil service because my dad wanted me to be a civil servant. And this probably he had decided when I was born. I remember that when I was about 10 years old, when I had started reading a bit, I saw a piece of paper in which he had clearly outlined what I would do to become an IS officer. So that's how it was done. But as I've indicated in my book, not just a civil servant, I thoroughly enjoyed every moment of the journey that I had as a civil servant for 38 years. And if I were to be born again, I'd like to be an IS officer all over. For the simple reason that amount of good that you can do a large number of people in the service is unmatched. I don't think there's any other service anywhere in the world where if you want to do good, you can do good to a lot of people. If you want to do nothing, you can also survive in the service. So it offers you enormous amount of choice, which no other service does. So I would like to be an IS officer all over again if I were to be born again.
How were your early days?
Early days were very, very interesting. I enjoyed thoroughly every moment that I had at the academy. And when I came to the district for district training, I recall an incident when I had gone to call on my district magistrate. They're supposed to be mentors, and most of my bosses have been mentors, but this here was an exception. As I waited in his chamber for about 2 hours, he didn't turn up. So I came back to my inspection bungalow, and then I met him only formally during official meetings. And probably he discovered my value on the 31st of December. I remember it was the year 1982, when we were having playing cards at the officers club. And in the overnight session that we had on 31st of December, I cleaned him out of rupees 300, and that was quite an amount at that point in time. So after the card session was over, I came to my place and I slept. At around 11 o'clock, someone knocked at the door, and when I opened it, I found an orderly with an envelope. And when I opened that envelope, I found that I had been posted as subdivisional magistrate in Fatehpur district. Now this was very unusual because it was still under training. It is only after training that you get such positions. But I was given that post, and I enjoyed working as a subdivisional magistrate even as a probationer. Very interestingly, the same district magistrate did not appoint somebody who succeeded me and had completed training for a different reason. He was not given subdivisional magistrate. So that's how life is. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't get it. But gradually and soon I realized that that's the way civil servants have to work. It was all initially baptism by fire, because when I did get my regular posting as subdivisional magistrate in Hardoi, that was after my training. I recall it was 1984 when a couple of guards of Srimati Indira Gandhi, they had assassinated her, and all hell seems to have broken loose, even in this district where I was posted as subdivisional magistrate. Leaders belonging to a particular political party were singling out certain Sikh shops, and they were burning them. That is when I got cracking, and I did arrest a few of them. I even made out an NSA case against a ruling party MLA, who was quite a powerful MLA, and not many people took it well. I submitted the report to the district magistrate, who didn't say anything to me, but I was soon summoned to Lucknow by the appointment secretary asking me why I had put in such report. I said I felt and I had sufficient information to see that this guy was leading all the arson that was happening. So he asked me to withdraw the report. I politely told him that I have submitted my report. I am nobody to take a decision on that. Decision has to be taken by the district magistrate. He can reject my report. But they wanted me to withdraw the report, which I politely refused. Consequent to which, I got transferred out of Hardoi. It was early in my career that I discovered that transfer does happen in civil service. And very soon I came to the following conclusion, that for a civil servant, transfer like death was like death. It was inevitable. So there was no point in worrying about it. In fact, subsequently, I had to tell the chief secretary when he was worried about one of my transfers. I told him, I believe in Hindu philosophy. Transfers means death, but I will be reborn and do the same thing all over again. So the moment I understood that, the moment I stopped expecting things from others, I had a great life. I lived like a king. I enjoyed what I did. My agreement with the government was very clear. You decide where you got to post me, and thereafter I'll do what I have to do. And that helped me a lot throughout my career. It's not very complicated. It's fairly simple. Realization is difficult, but the approach is very simple. The moment you stop expecting things from others, the moment you come to this conclusion that you have no control over others, the only control that you have is over yourself, life becomes easy. You stop expecting, you live a simple life, you do what you want to do. Now each civil servant has to take a call and decide what does he want in life. That's a very critical question that some of us don't have an answer to begin with, and sometimes we get very confused. whether I want money, whether I want power, whether I want both money and power, whether I want to help people. I mean, my claim was very simple. I was looking at enjoyment of every moment that I spent there in terms of helping people around me. And that gives me enormous amount of kick of helping people who were virtually helpless. That is what IS does to you. You have an opportunity to help so many people. I mean, I ran a scheme called Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana. It is arguably the biggest health insurance scheme in the world. And I recall in one of the visits to Washington, when the Obama administration advisors wanted me to make a presentation on this scheme, and which I did, there was a representative of Gates Foundation who walked up to me after the presentation and asked me, Mr. Swaroop, you are a civil servant and you seem to be very passionate about the scheme. What is the government giving you beyond your salary? It was a very interesting question. I asked him a counter question and asked him that if Gates Foundation does so much good to the poor people, they give millions of dollars, what do they get out of it? And he said, well, that's his job and he derives a lot of satisfaction out of what they do. I said, you answered your question. The Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana is meant for the poorest of the poor. And all the good wishes of those that have benefited in the scheme and those that survived come back to me somehow, anyhow. That's good enough a kick for me to continue to do what I'm doing. Then I narrated an incident to him. In this scheme, I used to visit these small and medium hospitals. In one of those visits, I was talking to a beneficiary patient. I heard a very feeble voice from behind. And I turned around and I saw a very old lady calling me, Beta idhar aao. I went around and bent down because she couldn't sit. She was so old. And then I asked her, Mata ji, aap kaisi hain? She said, बेटा मैं बहुत तकलीफ में हूँ लेकिन अस्पताल वालों ने मेरा बड़ा ख्याल रखा है. I said, फिर तो आप ठीक हो जाएंगी, अपने घर जाएंगी. Her response was very interesting. She said, बेटा मेरा तो ना कोई बेटा है ना भाई, मेरा कोई नहीं, मैं तो भीख मांगती थी. मैं बीमार पड़ गई, मेरा पड़ोसी वो भी भीख मांगता था. उसने तुम्हारा एक कार्ड देखा. This was a smart card based insurance scheme. और वो कार्ड देखकर मुझे यहाँ ले आया अस्पताल में. अस्पताल वाले मेरी सेवा कर रहे हैं, मुझसे पैसे भी नहीं मांगते, मेरे पास हैं भी नहीं देने को. Then I again said, नहीं माता जी, फिर भी आप ठीक हो जाए. नहीं बेटा, मेरी तो उम्र इतनी हो गई, अब मैं ऊपर वाले के पास जाऊंगी. This carried on for a while, and then she made a very remarkable statement. She said, बेटा ऊपर वाले से जाके एक बार जरूर कहूंगी, तुम्हारी स्कीम बहुत अच्छी है. To me, I think that's one of the biggest kicks that I had. I call them my Bharat Ratnas in my book. I've had many such Bharat Ratnas in my career, and that kept me going. I think that was the drive that kept me going. That is what I wanted from the service, and that is what I would look forward to if I were to born again. No, I am nobody to advise anybody on what they should do. I can only say what I did. I can only explain why I did. I can only explain what I got. I can tell about myself. Others have to make their own choices. It's a very personal, individual choice that they have to decide. I can tell them that I enjoyed thoroughly doing what I did, so they can have this choice as well to do what they want to do. There is a price to be paid either side. You're making money, you make a price. You don't make a money, you pay a price. Now, that's a personal choice that each individual has to make. He cannot blame anybody else for the choices that he makes. I chose in a particular way, and I'm not saying that's the best way of going about it. All I'm saying is I thoroughly enjoyed it, and then it's for the others to decide. I can tell them, this is what I narrated an incident to you. I keep saying, jo paave wahi jane. I can't explain it to anybody else. You have to experience it. I know of so many civil servants who've enjoyed being in the civil service by doing what they were doing. There were many other civil servants who would have made money and enjoyed as well. So it's their choice. But when they get caught and when things go wrong and when they don't get the desired recognition, then they should not be blaming others because they had a choice. What I'm trying to say is there is an option available. It's not that options are not available. Sometimes people say the circumstances are such that you can't do anything else. What I'm trying to tell them is there is an option available. The choice is yours. You take a call. What do you want to do as a civil servant? You know, my next book, Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant, actually attempts to answer these questions. It's not that it was all hunky-dory, it was very simple and easy. It was difficult. Again, that's a choice you got to make at that point in time. And I have narrated a couple of incidents in my forthcoming book. One such incident is that this Babri Masjid agitation was going on. And it was in a very bad shape. It was before the masjid coming down. And there were Rath Yatras being taken around all over the country. And I was posted as district magistrate in Lakhimpur Kheri. I remember a murder had taken place, and a particular party wanted to take out a funeral procession. And this party was the ruling party. They wanted a funeral procession. So I denied that permission. This guy, the president of the district ruling party, he wanted to take this procession out. He insisted. We got him arrested. Now, this is not easy. to put behind the bars the president, district president of the ruling party. Sure enough, late in the evening, the chief minister rang me up personally. He said, "You've arrested my president." I said, "Yes, we have." "Why?" I explained the whole thing to him. Then he asked me, "Why can't you release him?" I told him, "The moment I release him, there will be riot here." District magistrate, as district magistrate Lakhimpur Kheri, I was very clear in my mind, irrespective of whoever is involved, law and order is the domain of civil servants. In fact, recently I've written an article on it based on what happened in Delhi. So I explained to him that if I release him, tomorrow there will be riot. And I gave him the credit for peace in the district because all other districts surrounding Lakhimpur Kheri had to impose curfew. In district Lakhimpur Kheri, we didn't have to impose curfew because everyone believed whoever did anything wrong, district magistrate will put him behind the bars. I don't know what transpired. I was prepared for a transfer. I told my wife that I could be transferred out. As luck would have it, he said, "Phir kya kiya jaye?" Then I had an answer. It's not that I said only no to him. I told him, "Sir, why don't you speak to the concerned person and tell him not to take out this procession? It's a very sensitive time, and then I'll release him." The moment he says that he will not take out a procession, I have no other reason to keep him behind the bars. I don't know what happened next morning. That guy was ready that he will not take out the funeral procession. He was released, and the situation was diffused. Now, it could have gone either way. It could have, I could have been transferred, so be it. Because I was going by my convictions, I was going by what I thought, and I was prepared to take the consequences. The moment a civil servant starts thinking on those lines, I think he will still have problems, but not as many problems as someone else who's not sure about what he has to do. I was very clear in my mind. So once you are clear in your mind, half the battle is won. See, world keeps changing. I don't think world will remain static. I have been interacting with young civil servants. They're very bright young officers. That law and order is in the domain of civil servants. Politicians have no role. They may have caused it, but they have no role to play in maintenance of law and order. Maintenance is the job of the civil servant. Pay the price if if they are annoyed and they get you transferred, so be it. It's very clear. No drive can come from outside. For a civil servant, especially an IAS officer, what are you looking for? Except for the kicks that you get from within and you feel good about it, you feel kicked about it. There's no other motivation. There could be others, but the basic motivation is you feel good internally about it. I gave you one example of that old lady. I think what could be better than that? My book is replete with such examples where I've tried to explain what kicks that I got by doing what I did. It's not that I always succeeded. There were many occasions where I failed. But I am also a believer in Karman Nevadikar Istema Felishu Kadachan. I have absolutely no control over results. I have enjoyed moments. When I say enjoyed moments, I have enjoyed processes. I have enjoyed doing what I am doing. Results are not in my hand. Sometimes they came my way, sometimes they didn't. There were many failures right from the beginning in my life. I remember having booed out of an IIT cultural festival in Kanpur. I was booed out. I thought I was a good singer. I picked up a wrong note and I was booed out. But that's how life is. You fail, you make mistakes. I think I tried to learn from my mistake. That was the difference. So I have, as I keep saying, I have never ventured into finding, a position for myself. Never. The position got given by the government. Sometimes I got so-called good ones. I enjoyed every moment. A position, I remember I was posted to a place called Member Board of Revenue. It's considered to be a God-forsaken place. I volunteered for it because I refused to suspend a few officers that I was asked to. I said, it's not their fault, so I didn't suspend them. So I volunteered to move to a position where no one wanted to go, and I enjoyed that position thoroughly. As Member Board of Revenue, where cases were not being cleared over the years, I sat down in the court and cleared those cases and derived enormous amount of satisfaction. My basic occupation now, post-retirement, is going around the country delivering talks. I travel for about 15-20 days a month, go to various places, the IITs, the IIMs, colleges, universities, scientists, private sector CEOs. They all want to know how do things happen in the government. In fact, the alternative title to my previous book could have been Making Things Happen in the Government. People outside do not know the government. They treat government as a monolith, as does government to an outsider. In government, every civil servant thinks that outside businesses are all corrupt. Outside businesses believe that all civil servants need money for do things. Both are wrong. I think the good people on either side of the fence. In the private sector, I have come across marvelous people. I have worked with absolutely outstanding civil servants. The tragedy is all the rascals and ruffians come together, both at the public and private. But the good people in the public and private don't come together. And that's something which I'm doing post-retirement. I've started a movement called Nexus of Good. The idea here is to identify good work, understand good work, appreciate good work, replicate good work, scale good work. Get good people to talk about each other, get people to stand by each other. The tragedy is every good person is fighting his own battle individually, whereas all the rascals and ruffians come together and fight it together. Can we change that? Can we change that narrative? And secondly, I have also believed that nation wants to know also the positive things happening. There's so many good things that are happening, and I, over a period of time, discovered that. Primarily as Education Secretary, where I traveled to about 24 states in the first 3 months as Education Secretary. And what I saw was absolutely amazing. When I say states, I went deep inside. First 2 districts were Bastar and Sukma, drove from Pune to Goa, got down on the way, drove from Srinagar to Leh, not taking the national highway, going deep inside mountains to understand what education was. And what I discovered was absolutely amazing. We selected about 110 such models that were working in India. And these were in India, not in England, Finland, Holland, Scotland, or all those lands of the world. It was in motherland that I found these excellent models. Got them over to Delhi, got them to make presentations here, picked up 24 of them, took them back to the states and scaled them. And I still am in touch with some of them, doing wonderfully well. That's the way we can do it. And one model stands out. Of course, there were many of them. I remember having walked into a government primary school in a place called Pastepada, 120 kilometers north of Thane district, a tribal area. And I was told there was no electricity. But as I walked into this 2-room school, I found that every child had a tablet, and I was shocked. I was pleasantly shocked. I asked the teacher, Sandeep Gund, where do you get the electricity from? He took me around the school and showed me a foldable solar panel through which he was charging the batteries, and through batteries he was charging the tablets. Then I asked him, where did you get the money to buy the tablets? He said, well, when I had come here, there were about 40, 50 children. Half of them did not come to the school, and I didn't really know what to do. So he had a second-hand laptop. He used to play educational videos. And the children started getting very fascinated with those educational videos. About 2 months down the line, about 15, 20 parents came down to school asking him a very funny question. They asked him, पहले तो स्कूल जाते नहीं थे, अब ये स्कूल भाग के आते हैं, आपने क्या किया? Then he explained to them what he did. And thereafter, finding that the parents were very fascinated with what he was doing, he made a very interesting request to them. They were all poor people, but he asked them to give 500 rupees each because he wanted to buy 2 tablets. They paid 500 rupees each. He brought 2 tablets, attached them to the laptop, made them into 3 groups, and continued with his work. This passion of this teacher, Sandeep Good, was spreading around, and one day a CSR funding agency and an NGO, they came to his school and saw this passion of this teacher. They agreed to fund the tablets as well as a smart screen. Around this time, as Secretary of Education, I visited that school, and I was amazed at his commitment. I took a photograph with Sandeep Gund, tweeted it, suddenly he became a local hero. Other schools started visiting his school like a pilgrimage, and they started copying him. In the meanwhile, I met the President of India in a different context. And while having a chat with him, since he had time, I narrated this wonderful story of Sandeep Gund to him and asked him whether he would like to meet Sandeep Gund. He said, why not? So I called Sandeep Gund over to Delhi. He met the president, a photograph was taken, it was tweeted, Sandeep Gund becomes a national hero. And this is not the end of the story. The Pastepada model has been replicated in more than 60,000 schools of Maharashtra. In fact, as a part of Nexus Good, yesterday, I tweeted a story of the day. Every day we tweet a story, and that's about Sandeep Gund. 60,000, it's not a joke. And more than 300 crores of rupees were raised through crowdfunding, not a single penny from the government. That's what Nexus Good is all about. That's where I learned my lessons. That's where I felt so much good work is happening. What we need to do is to see how we can notice them, is to see how we can understand them, is to see how we can appreciate them, is to see how we can replicate them, is to see how we can scale them. It can be done because it is being done. That's the message of Nexus of Good. You know, the opportunity that you have in the service is unmatched. And that is why so many people are coming. Unmatched in the sense, if you're honest, you can survive. If you're dishonest, you can survive. If you work hard, you can survive. If you don't work, you can survive. If you're efficient, you'll survive. If you're inefficient, you just might thrive. I jokingly tell people, if you're efficient, you might become Secretary Government of India. If you're inefficient and lucky, you can become Cabinet Secretary Government of India, perhaps RBI Governor as well. So, there's no better service. Can you think of any other service which allows you to commit mistakes yet reach the top? Wonderful service. You can survive and thrive either ways. That's the choice that this service offers you. And that's why it's worth getting into the service all over again. It's not easy to remain honest. In civil service, you can. It's not easy to remain dishonest. In civil service, you can. So that's why civil service.
And you do say you're composing music. Are there any other lateral hobbies you're pursuing?
Oh, I did almost everything except studies during my student career. So I used to write plays, I used to play every game. I'm a very avid reader. I read about 100 books a year. So I do a lot of things and I travel a lot, and that helps me to read a lot. So there's a lot to be done in life. 24 hours is a long time.